Hi there, it is Jo from Minerva, and today I'm adding to my How to Put Different Zips In series by showing you how to put in an invisible zip. It is good to have a tutorial specifically for a type of zip insertion so that if you're watching one of our sew-alongs, you can hop out of the video, double check the zip instructions and then go back to your sew-along. An invisible zip has the zipper pull on the front and the teeth on the back, so try not to get them mixed up. When it pulls down, you should have your fabric attached each side and you won't see the zip. You might need to use a special foot for this, so you might need to use an invisible foot or a really close seam foot. This foot's really good because it's useful for all types of zip insertion. You can buy one of these separate to go on your machine. This hooks around the shank and the needle can get really close to the edge of your work. You can change the position, so you can have the needle on the right or you can have the needle on the left. If you've got a zipper foot for your machine and you're not quite getting close enough, this one might solve your problem. An invisible foot has a little pin at the front, that's a little guide, and that peels the zipper teeth away from where you want to sew, and in the bottom it has some grooves and the zipper teeth run in those grooves, and as you sew your needle goes through the little hole, up and down through the hole. The guide pushes the teeth out of the way and runs them into the channel, and you can get your stitch line really close. Let me show you how to put in an invisible zip. I'm going to use a sample piece of fabric. Before you put the invisible zip in, it's a good idea just to press the tapes away from the teeth, because the teeth roll right over, so you'll think you're sewing really close, but actually there's a millimetre on the other side. So get your iron and press up to the edge of that teeth. Now you've got to be careful you don't melt the teeth on your zipper, but you just need to be able to get at that tape that's underneath the zip roll. So if this is part of a dress, so if this is the back of a skirt or the back of a dress or the side of some sort of capri trousers or anything like that, then you don't sew up the side seam. You keep that loose because you put the zip in first and then you finish the seam below. So the first thing to do is to position your zip. On the right hand side of the fabric, you're going to position the zip so that the teeth are 1.5 centimetres away from the edge. You can measure that, but there might be some specific instructions in your pattern. I'm going to use the edge of my overlock as a guide. And the zipper pull is right side down and the fabric is right side up, so it's right sides together, and you're going to pin the invisible zip in place. It's sometimes helpful if you have it open. Your pattern will tell you how far down to go, which will depend on any seam allowances that are required at the top for facing or adding a collar or for binding. So make sure that you've followed your instructions for how far down to have your zip. And then again, just for security, I'm going to tack it in place. I don't want that to blow out in any particular place. I want it to stay at 1.5 seam allowance from the raw edge. And that's the teeth that I'm wanting that position to be in. Doesn't take long, it really is quick. You just need some large basting stitches that hold the zipper tapes in place. And now you're going to stitch your right hand side in place and keep the teeth away from where you're sewing. How do you get it really invisible? That's what everyone wants to know. So let's go over to the machine and see how we can get as close to there as we need to get an invisible zip. Sometimes I put my invisible zip on twice so I get as close as I can, then I can have a little look and then I can go a little bit closer because it will already all be attached. So I've got my slim adjustable foot on. I am using a different coloured thread, so it will look slightly unusual, but I want to show you. So this is the overlocked edge, this is the tape. That's how close I've got. But I think I'm still going to have some tape showing, and I'm going to test it out by pulling the zipper pull. So I've still got a little bit of tape showing, so I need to go a little bit closer. Sometimes it depends on your fabric. Sometimes the fabric will just roll into the space quite nicely. You can't have it too close because then you'll catch your fabric in the teeth and the zipper won't work. So I'm going to take one more pass this time, but I'm going to use a smaller stitch length because that was on 3.5 just as my first little test. It won't hurt to have another row of stitching on my tape. But you can see it's just moved it a little bit further towards those teeth, so my zip will be invisible. Right, with the right side of the fabric facing up, this is the right panel, and the right side of the left panel, I want to do the same. I want that to be taped to be 1.5 centimeters from the raw edge. Let me show you that again. Here's the zip flat. The right side is attached. This is the right side of the fabric. So right sides of fabric together. Pick up the zip. And match the raw edges. Now you will notice here that I've only sewn down this far. I haven't tried to get past the zip, so I don't want to try and get all the way past the zip because my stitch line will blow out and I won't be able to get really close to it. So I'm going to do this one down to the same place, and then we're going to work on how do we get that bit at the bottom flat. So I'm going to repeat what I've just done and sew down the other side of the zipper tape. You could use an invisible foot, so you need to make sure that your needle goes through the hole, so just do a hand wheel turn just to check that first, and the teeth sort of stand up vertically and they run into their little grooves on the bottom. So either side works, either with a invisible foot or the narrow foot. One side's one and one side's the other. It depends which one you're getting a good line on your machine. Right, that's better. That's all pressed and it's pretty invisible and operational. Right, we've got to deal with this here now. So what you need to do is to fold to the wrong side and match up the raw edges of your seam. And you're going to keep that bit of tail, the last bit of your invisible zip. You need to keep that pointing up in the air out of the way. Sometimes it just helps to fold the whole zip in half. And we're going to stitch that seam and then make our seam line join in with the very last 2 stitches that we used to attach our invisible zip. So your seam line needs to run along here and then 2 stitches joining the last 2 stitches of your zip. So this is where you end up with little puckers. This is where you've got to be really careful. You need to make sure that that's all nice and flat, and that zipper tail is completely out of the way in the flattest way possible, because all your hard work can go to waste now if you don't join this line smoothly onto this line. I'm going to join it on, and you might want to put your slim foot on now, or your zipper foot, so that you can just get close to there. Here's your invisible zip finished. So the seam below runs seamlessly into the seam of the invisible zip. Inside you've just got the neat finish of the tape and your finished edge. Everything's been pressed open. Obviously you'll be using the correct colour thread. I've used red so that you could see my stitch line. So that's an invisible zip. Adding a zip isn't as complicated as you think. If you know the technique and how to do it, you can get a really clean finish. Do check out our other zip tutorials on Minerva, and in the meantime head over to our website and check out our Minerva makers. Thanks very much for watching. See you again soon.